Leave the noise of the modern world behind. Forget the traffic, the screens, and the endless rush of time. Tonight, we travel back more than 2,000 years to a place where time is measured not by clocks, but by the slow burning of a sacred log. Step with me into the cool shadows of ancient Greece. Enter the sanctuary of Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, where the fire never dies and the silence is as thick as the stone walls. The year is 402 BC. It is late summer in the valley of Delphi, a place considered by the ancients to be the navel of the world. The sun, a heavy orb of molten gold, is beginning its slow descent behind the Phaedriades cliffs. The harsh, bright light of the Mediterranean afternoon is softening, turning the rugged limestone mountains into shades of violet and dusty rose. The air is still warm, holding the heat of the day in the stones of the path. But a gentle breeze is beginning to stir from the Gulf of Corinth far below. It carries with it the scent of dry pine needles, wild thyme, and the faint, sweet dust of the olive groves that carpet the valley floor. The great sanctuary is quieting down. The pilgrims who crowded the sacred way during the day have retreated to their lodgings. The merchants have packed away their wares of bronze tripods and votive statues. The voices of the philosophers debating in the Stoa have faded into whispers and then into silence. High up the mountain, nestled away from the grand temple of Apollo, stands a smaller, more modest building. It is the Prytaneum, the sacred hearth of the city. It is a circular building, a tholos, surrounded by a slender Doric columns made of white marble. The marble glows softly in the twilight, luminous against the darkening green of the cypress trees that stand guard around it. Approaching this sacred circle is Elara. She is a woman of 50, her hair streaked with the silver of wisdom. She is a keeper of the flame, a priestess of Hestia. Her life is a life of service to the fire. She wears a chiton of simple, unbleached linen, the fabric soft and worn from years of washing. It falls in long, straight pleats to her ankles, rustling softly against the stone path as she walks. She walks slowly. In the sanctuary, there is no reason to hurry. Every step is a meditation. She can feel the warmth of the flagstones through the thin leather soles of her sandals. Step, pause. Step, pause. She reaches the outer perimeter of the tholos. Before she can enter the presence of the goddess, she must purify herself. To the left of the entrance stands a large basin carved from a single block of gray stone. It is filled with water brought from the Castalian spring earlier that morning. Elara stops. She dips her hands into the water. It is shockingly cold, a sharp contrast to the warm evening air. She does not splash. She simply holds her hands submerged, feeling the water wash away the dust of the day, the oils of her skin, and the thoughts of the outside world. She watches the ripples move across the surface of the dark water, reflecting the first appearing stars. She lifts her hands, water dripping from her fingertips back into the basin with a rhythmic plip, plip, plip. She dries them on a clean cloth hanging from her belt. Her skin feels cool and tight. Now she is ready. She steps between the columns. The instant is immediate. The air inside the colonnade is stiller, heavier. The sounds of the cicadas in the trees seem miles away. She approaches the heavy wooden door of the inner chamber. It is made of cedar, dark and aromatic. She places her palm against the wood. She pushes gently. The door swings open on bronze hinges that have been oiled to perfect silence. She steps over the threshold and into the womb of the temple. Inside, it is dark, save for the center of the room. There, in a circular pit lined with stone, burns the Hestia, the eternal flame. It is not a roaring bonfire. It is a contained, cultivated, living thing. A bed of deep, glowing orange coals pulses with heat, and above them, a few low flames lick at a thick log of seasoned oak. The smell hits her instantly. It is not the smell of a campfire. It is a clean, ancient smell, wood smoke, frankincense, and the faint, oily scent of burnt laurel leaves. It is a smell that has inhabited this room for centuries, soaking into the porous stone of the walls, hanging in the air like a sacred mist. Elara closes the door behind her. The click of the latch seals the world away. She is alone with the fire. The silence is profound. It is a silence so deep you can hear the settling of the ash in the pit, the soft hiss of sap escaping from the wood, and the rhythm of your own breath. She takes a deep breath, inhaling the sacred smoke. Her shoulders drop. Her mind clears. The night watch has begun. Elara stands before the circular pit of the hearth. The fire is the only source of light in the round room, casting her shadow tall and flickering against the curved stone walls behind her. She does not rush to feed the flame. To serve Hestia is to understand patience. Before she can add new life to the fire, she must understand the state of the old life that still burns. She moves to a small, low stone bench near the perimeter of the fire pit. On it lay the tools of her office, a long poker made of hammered bronze, a pair of heavy iron tongs, and a small broom made of stiff twigs bound with leather. She reaches for the poker. The bronze handle is cool to the touch, polished smooth by the hands of priestesses who have stood here for generations before her. She wraps her fingers around it, feeling the weight and balance of the tool. She approaches the edge of the pit. She kneels on a cushion of woven wool placed on the flagstones. The heat here is immediate, a dry, radiating warmth that touches her cheeks and forehead. It is a comfortable heat, like the sun at midday, but softer, more intimate. Elara extends the bronze poker into the pit. She moves with the precision of a surgeon. She does not disturb the center of the fire yet. Instead, she gently prods the perimeter of the ash bed. Shh, shh. The sound of the metal sliding through the gray ash is soft, like sand shifting on a beach. She pushes the white spent ash to the outer rim of the circle, clearing a path to the heart of the fire. As she clears the gray veil, the hidden colors of the hearth reveal themselves. Beneath the ash, the coals are alive. They glow with a deep, pulsating garnet red, veins of gold running through them where the heat is most intense. She watches the coals breathe. As the air touches them, they brighten for a second, inhaling, and then dim slightly, exhaling. It is a slow, hypnotic rhythm. Elara observes the charred remains of the previous log. It is broken down into 3 large, distinct chunks of charcoal, their surfaces comprised of tiny, glowing geometric squares. She uses the poker to gently nudge them closer together. Contact preserves heat. Isolated coals die. United coals survive. Clink! The bronze tool taps against a piece of carbonized wood. The sound rings clearly in the silence of the tholos, a single musical note that fades slowly. She adjusts the coals until they form a perfect, glowing nest, a bed ready to receive the offering. Satisfied with the arrangement of the embers, Elara rises. Her knees crack softly, a human sound in a divine space.
She places the poker back on the stone bench. She turns her back to the fire and walks to the far side of the room where the fuel is kept. Against the curved northern wall, protected from any dampness, stands the woodpile. This is not a haphazard heap of timber. It is a library of fuel. The logs are stacked with architectural precision, arranged by size, type, and age. Elara runs her hand along the ends of the stacked logs. She can feel the rough texture of the bark and the smooth, sanded grain of the cut ends. There is olive wood, dense and oily, which burns hot and bright, but smokes heavily. There is pine, full of resin, which snaps and crackles, too noisy for the quiet night watch. And then there is oak. Tonight she seeks oak, the king of trees. Oak burns slowly, steadily, and with a dignified silence. It creates the best bed of coals for the morning. Elara crouches down to inspect a section of oak logs that were cut 3 years ago. They have been drying in the mountain air, seasoning, waiting for this specific night. She touches a log near the top of the stack. It is about the thickness of her thigh and the length of her arm. She grips the rough bark. It feels dry, brittle, and dusty. She lifts it. It is heavy, dense with stored energy, but light enough to tell her that the sap has long since evaporated. She brings the log close to her face. She smells it. It smells of earth and time. There is no scent of green dampness, only the dry, musky scent of seasoned timber. She runs her fingers over the bark. It is deeply furrowed, like the landscape of the mountains outside. She checks for any signs of rot or beetles. The wood must be perfect. The flame of Hestia deserves no imperfections. This log is sound. It is solid. Elara stands, cradling the heavy oak log in both arms against her chest. The bark scratches gently against her linen chiton. She feels the solidity of the wood, a tangible connection to the earth. She turns back towards the center of the room. The fire pit awaits, a glowing red eye in the center of the dark. She walks slowly, carrying the weight of the wood. Her shadow stretches out before her, reaching the fire before she does. She returns to the edge of the pit. She does not throw the log. That would be disrespectful, and the noise would shatter the peace. She kneels once more. She holds the log out, hovering it over the bed of glowing coals she prepared earlier. She can feel the heat radiating up against her forearms, warming the underside of the wood. She pauses there, holding the fuel and the fire apart for just a moment longer, respecting the transition that is about to take place. The wood is ready. The fire is ready. The night is quiet.
Elara kneels on the stone floor, the heavy oak log balanced in her arms. The heat from the bed of coals washes over her face, dry and intense. It is the only warmth in the cooling night air of the mountains. She begins the descent. Slowly, with the deliberate care of a mother laying a child into a cradle, she lowers the log. Her muscles tremble slightly with the sustained effort of holding the weight away from her body. She extends her arms, leaning forward over the pit. The rough bark of the oak log meets the glowing red bed of charcoal. Crump. It is a soft, muffled sound, the sound of wood meeting ash and fire. It is not a crash, but a settling, a returning. She does not let go immediately. She holds the ends of the log, testing its stability. The fire pit is round, and the fuel must be balanced perfectly so that it does not roll or shift as it burns. She wiggles the log slightly, feeling it lock into the contours of the embers beneath. It sits firm. She withdraws her hands. She sits back on her heels, watching the immediate reaction of the elements. At first, there is no flame. There is only smoke. The heat of the coals begins to cook the underside of the new wood. Thin, gray ribbons of smoke begin to curl up from around the edges of the log. They twist and spiral in the draft of the room, rising towards the opening in the roof far above. Elara leans in closer. She listens. Hiss. Pop. A tiny pocket of moisture, trapped deep within the grain of the oak for years, suddenly vaporizes. It makes a sharp, small sound in the silence. Then the smell changes. The clean mineral scent of the hot stones is joined by the rich, toasted aroma of heating oak. It smells like a baking oven, like scorching timber, a scent that is primitive and comforting. She watches the bark on the underside of the log. It begins to glow. The dark brown turns to black, and then along the edges where it touches the hottest coals, a line of bright orange appears. The fire is accepting the offering. A small tongue of blue flame licks up the side of the log. It is the first new fire of the night. It dances nervously, disappearing and reappearing, feeding on the gases releasing from the wood. Now is the moment for the invocation. In the ancient world, no act is purely mechanical. Every action is a dialogue with the divine. Elara reaches for a small ceramic jug resting on the floor beside her tools. It contains pure olive oil, pressed from the sacred groves in the valley below. She uncorks the jug. She pours a tiny amount, no more than a thimbleful, onto the edge of the burning log. Sizzle. The oil hits the heat and flares instantly. A bright yellow light illuminates Elara's face for a brief second, reflecting in her dark eyes. She clasps her hands together in her lap. She does not speak aloud. In this sanctuary, the silence is the prayer. She speaks only with her mind, projecting her thoughts into the flames. Hestia, first and last, keeper of the center. As this wood burns, so let the safety of the city endure. Keep the walls standing. Keep the families warm. Let there be no strife within the gates tonight. Accept this wood. Accept this watch. It is the same prayer she has offered every night for 30 years. It is a prayer for stability. Hestia is not the goddess of wild adventures or changing fortunes. She is the goddess of the things that stay the same. She is the anchor. She watches the oil flare die down. The flame on the log has steadied now. It has taken hold. The yellow fire is climbing the bark, creating a new landscape of light and shadow in the pit. The log is no longer just wood. It is becoming part of the eternal flame. She picks up the bronze poker one last time. She gently taps a stray coal back towards the center, tucking it under the new log to ensure it feeds the fresh fuel. Clink. She places the tool down. She smooths the folds of her linen dress. The critical work is done. The fire is fed. The god is honored. Now begins the long, quiet vigil of the witness. She rises from her kneeling position, moving stiffly. She walks to the high-backed wooden chair that sits in the shadows, just outside the circle of direct heat, but within the circle of light. She sits. The wood of the chair is polished, smooth, and dark. She settles in. She rests her armrests on the armrests. She fixes her eyes on the flames. The fire is a living painting. It changes every second, yet remains exactly the same. The yellow tongues dance. The red coals pulse. The white ash settles. It is the oldest television in the world, and Elara is its sole audience. Outside the thick stone walls, an owl hoots, a single mournful note that echoes through the valley. Hoo! Elara blinks slowly. Her breathing slows, matching the slow consumption of the oak log. The peace of the temple settles over her like a heavy, warm blanket.
She is the guardian of the stillness.
Elara sits in the high-backed chair, her body bathed in the flickering warmth of the hearth. The new oak log is burning steadily now, a quiet consumption that requires no interference. But a priestess of Hestia does not sit with idle hands. The hands must work, even when the mind rests. Beside her chair, on the stone floor, sits a woven basket called a kalathos. It is filled with raw wool, shorn from the sacred sheep that graze on the slopes of Mount Parnassus. The wool is undyed, a natural creamy white that glows softly in the firelight. Elara reaches down. Her fingers brush against the wicker rim of the basket. She gathers a handful of the raw fleece. It is soft, airy, and light as a cloud. As she rubs it between her thumb and forefinger, she can feel the faint waxy texture of the lanolin. It is the natural oil of the sheep, and it keeps her skin soft despite the dryness of the fire. The wool smells faintly of the mountains, of wind, grass, and rain. She picks up her spindle. It is a simple tool, unchanged for 1,000 years, a slender shaft of polished olive wood, weighted at the bottom by a round disc of fired clay, known as the whorl. The wood is dark from the oils of her hands. The clay whorl is painted with a simple geometric band of black slip. She attaches the leader thread to the hook at the top of the shaft. She is ready to spin. She holds the distaff, the bundle of raw wool, in her left hand, high near her shoulder. With her right hand, she takes the spindle. Flick! She gives the shaft a sharp, practiced twist with her thumb and middle finger. The spindle drops towards the floor, suspended by the thread. Whirr! It spins. It is a perfect, balanced rotation. The clay weight blurs into a solid circle of motion. The spindle hangs in the air, spinning rapidly, defying gravity for a few precious seconds. As it spins, Elara drafts the wool. Her left hand gently pulls fibers from the bundle, teasing them out. The twist travels up the thread, catching the loose fibers and locking them together into a strong, uniform yarn. It is a magic of friction and physics. Chaos becomes order. Fluff becomes thread. Elara watches the spindle descend. Lower and lower it goes, closer to the stone flagstones, lengthening the thread with every inch. Spin, draft, twist. Spin, draft, twist. Just before the whorl touches the ground, she stops it with her palm. She unhooks the thread, winds the new length of yarn around the shaft, and rehooks it. She begins again. Flick, whirr. The motion is hypnotic, up and down, twist and wind. It is a rhythm that mimics the breathing of the sleeper, the beating of the heart, the cycle of the day. She watches the shadow of the spindle on the floor. It is a long, thin shadow that dances back and forth, lengthening and shortening. The room is filled with the tiny, microscopic sounds of the craft, the shh of the wool being pulled apart, the low hum of the spinning weight, the tap of the wood against her palm as she catches it. She does not need to look at her hands. Her fingers know the thickness of the thread by feel alone. If it is too thick, she pulls harder. If it is too thin, she feeds more wool. It is a tactile conversation between the woman and the material. Minutes pass, then an hour. The pile of raw wool in the basket shrinks imperceptibly. The ball of spun yarn on the spindle grows fat and white. Elara's mind empties of all thoughts. There is no past, no future. There is only the thread connecting her hand to the spindle, the thread connecting the spindle to the earth, the thread connecting the moment to eternity. The fire pops softly. Snap! Elara looks up for a moment, checking the flame. It is steady.
She looks back down. Flick. Whir.
Elara stops the spindle. She catches the wood in her palm one last time, feeling the vibration die away. The shaft is now heavy, wrapped thick with tightly spun white yarn. It is enough for tonight. She places the spindle and the remaining raw wool back into the woven kalathos basket. The wicker creaks softly as she sets it down. Creak! She stands up and stretches. Her joints pop in the silence. It is the middle of the night, the time the Greeks call Mesai Nikdai. The temple is cooler now. The heat from the day has finally leached out of the stones, leaving the air fresh and crisp. It is time to break her fast. She walks to a small niche carved into the stone wall, shaded from the direct heat of the fire. Here, wrapped in a clean white cloth, is her supper. She brings the bundle to the low wooden table near her chair. She unfolds the cloth. The meal is simple, the food of the mountains. There is a round loaf of maza, a dense, unleavened cake made of barley flour and water. There is a small handful of wrinkled black olives, glistening with oil. There are 3 dried figs, flattened and brown. A wedge of hard goat cheese, pale and crumbly. Elara sits. She breaks a piece of the barley bread. Crack. The crust is hard. She dips it into a small bowl of olive oil to soften it. She eats. The bread is coarse and earthy, tasting of the grain fields. She chews slowly, methodically. In the absolute quiet, the sound of chewing is rhythmic and loud in her own ears. Next, an olive. She puts the dark fruit in her mouth. The taste is sharp and salty, the taste of the sea preserved in brine. She eats the flesh and drops the pit into a small clay bowl. Clink. She eats a fig. It is sticky and sweet, the seeds crunching softly. It tastes of the summer sun that dried it months ago. She eats not for pleasure, but for sustenance. The fire needs wood. The priestess needs grain. It is the same cycle. When the food is finished, she reaches for a terracotta pitcher and a shallow drinking cup, a kylix. The pitcher holds water from the spring, mixed with just a splash of dark, resinous wine to kill any impurities. She pours. Glug, glug, glug. The liquid fills the shallow cup, dark as garnet in the firelight. She lifts the cup to her lips, but she does not drink yet. The first sip does not belong to her. She stands and walks to the edge of the hearth. She holds the cup out over the stone floor, just beside the fire pit, not into the flames, but onto the earth that supports them. This is the libation, the sharing. She tilts the cup. A thin stream of wine and water falls. Splash. It hits the stone. The dry rock absorbs the liquid instantly, darkening in a small, spreading circle. She whispers the dedication. To Hestia, who shares her home. To the earth, which bears our weight. She watches the liquid disappear. It is a small sacrifice, a returning of what was given. Then she raises the cup again and drinks. The water is cool, cutting through the salt of the olives and the sweetness of the figs. She drinks deeply, feeling the cold liquid travel down her throat, quenching the thirst caused by the dry heat of the fire. She finishes the cup. She wipes her mouth with the back of her hand. She feels heavier now, grounded by the food and the wine. A comfortable drowsiness begins to settle behind her eyes. The fire seems to blur slightly, the flames softening into a fuzzy glow. She gathers the crumbs from the table and tosses them into the fire. Psst! They vanish instantly. She folds the cloth. She stacks the cup on the pitcher. The meal is done. The offering is made. The night stretches on. The meal has settled the hunger, but the heat of the fire, contained within the thick stone walls, has become heavy. The air inside the tholos is thick with the scent of oak and oil. Elara feels the need to breathe the open air, to reconnect with the world outside the circle. She stands and moves to the heavy cedar door. She lifts the bronze latch. Click. She pulls the door open just enough to slip through, closing it quickly behind her to protect the flame from any sudden gusts. She steps out into the pteron, the outer colonnade of the temple. The change is instant and shocking. The air here is sharp and cold, tumbling down from the snow-capped peaks of Mount Parnassus above. It bites at her cheeks and slips through the weave of her linen tunic, waking her skin. Elara walks to the edge of the marble steps. She wraps her arms around herself for warmth. She looks out. The Valley of Delphi is a bowl of absolute darkness. The olive groves far below are a black ocean, invisible save for the sound of the wind moving through a million leaves, a soft, dry, hissing sound, like the ocean, but drier. She looks up. Without the lights of a modern city to dull them, the stars are terrifyingly bright. They are not just points of light. They are heavy, diamond dust, scattered across a dome of velvet black. She sees the Milky Way, the Galaxias Kyklos, stretching across the sky like a spilled river of milk. It is dense and clouded with light. She traces the familiar shapes. There is Orion, the hunter, rising in the east, his belt of 3 stars perfectly aligned. There are the Pleiades, the 7 sisters, a tiny shimmering cluster that looks like a smudge of frost against the dark. There is the Great Bear, circling the pole, marking the north. Elara tilts her head back. The silence of the mountain is different from the silence of the temple. The temple silence is still and held. The mountain silence is vast and wild. It is the silence of rock and space. She hears the wind whistling softly through the fluted grooves of the Doric columns behind her. Whoo! She hears the distant rhythmic chirping of the cicadas slowing down as the night gets colder. Chirr, chirr. She feels very small. Standing between the massive limestone cliffs of the Phaedriades that loom above her and the deep drop of the valley below, she is just a speck. But she does not feel afraid. In the ancient world, to be small is to be in the correct relationship with the gods. The stars turn, the seasons change, and she tends the fire. It is enough. She breathes in deeply. The air smells of damp limestone, pine resin, and the night-blooming jasmine that grows near the treasury buildings. It is a cool, clean scent that clears the smoke from her lungs. She stands there for 5 minutes, just breathing. Inhale the cold, exhale the warmth. Inhale the stars, exhale the earth. A sudden gust of wind rattles the dry leaves of a nearby laurel tree. Rustle clack. Elara shivers. The cold has seeped through her thin clothes. It is time to return to the warmth. She turns away from the vastness of the universe. She walks back to the cedar door. She opens it, and a wave of heat and golden light spills out to greet her. She steps back inside, sealing the night away once more. The fire is waiting, exactly as she left it. Elara closes the heavy cedar door, shutting out the cold mountain wind and the vast starry sky. The silence of the sanctuary wraps around her instantly, heavy and warm. She stands for a moment, rubbing her cold arms, letting the heat of the hearth seep back into her skin. She looks at the floor. In the circle of light cast by the fire, she notices something. The burning of the oak log, while steady, has produced a fine dusting of white ash. It has drifted over the stone lip of the fire pit and settled on the dark gray flagstones of the temple floor. To a casual observer, it is nothing, a faint smudge. But this is the house of Hestia, and Hestia demands order. Catharsis, purification, is not just about spiritual cleanliness, it is about physical cleanliness. The hearth must be immaculate. Elara moves to the wall where her tools hang. She retrieves a small hand broom. It is not made of synthetic bristles, but of stiff, dried stalks of mountain grass, bound tightly together with a cord of hemp. The handle is short and polished smooth. Beside it, she takes a small scoop made of beaten copper. She returns to the fireside. She kneels on the stone floor. The stone is hard against her knees, but she does not mind. She leans forward, bringing her face close to the ground. In the firelight, the ash looks like snow, fine, powdery, and stark white against the dark rock. She begins to sweep. Swish, swish. The sound is dry and rhythmic. The grass bristles scratch gently against the textured stone. She moves with short, controlled strokes, gathering the scattered dust into a small mound. Swish, swish. She works in a circle around the pit. She follows the curve of the stone rim. She sweeps the dust from the cracks between the flagstones where it likes to hide. She is methodical. She does not miss a spot. The dust rises slightly in the air, dancing in the heat currents, golden motes in the firelight before settling back down. When she has gathered all the stray ash into a neat, small mound, she takes the copper scoop. She places the edge of the scoop flush against the floor. Scrape. She brushes the pile into the metal pan. It slides in with a soft hiss. The floor is left dark and clean, the natural grain of the limestone visible once more. Elara stands up. She carries the scoop to a large earthenware jar designated for waste ash. This ash is sacred. It cannot be thrown away carelessly. It will be used later to make lye for washing the temple linens or scattered on the sacred fields to fertilize the earth. The cycle continues. She tips the scoop. The ash slides into the jar with a soft poof. She hangs the broom and the scoop back on their hooks. She looks at the floor. It is spotless. The fire burns in the center, and the stone around it is clear. There is a deep satisfaction in this simple geometry, a clean circle, a clean mind. She wipes her hands on her apron. The act of cleaning has warmed her up completely. The chill of the mountain air is forgotten. She is back in the rhythm of the room. She walks back to her chair, but she does not sit yet. She walks a slow lap around the fire, inspecting her work from every angle. The shadows rotate around her. The fire creates a safe, warm island in the sea of the night. Everything is in its place.
The central hearth is the heart of the temple, a large, breathing entity of oak and coal. But it is not the only light. Around the perimeter of the circular room, tucked into small alcoves carved into the limestone walls, sit the votive lamps. These are humble vessels, small, palm-sized bowls made of unglazed terracotta, shaped like teardrops. Each one holds a pool of olive oil and a floating wick of twisted flax. They do not roar like the main fire, they whisper. They cast soft, stationary shadows against the statues of the ancestors standing in the gloom. Elara notices that the lamp in the eastern niche is dimming. The flame has shrunk to a tiny blue bead, struggling to stay atop the wick. She picks up a small clay jug of oil and a slender bronze pick, resembling a long needle. She walks softly to the alcove. The stone floor here is cooler, further from the hearth. She leans in close to the small lamp. She smells the hot ceramic and the faint scent of warm olives. The oil level is low. The fuel has been consumed by the hours of the night. She tilts the clay jug. Glug, drip. She pours slowly. The golden green oil flows in a thin stream, filling the reservoir of the lamp. She watches the liquid rise, careful not to drown the tiny flame.
She stops just below the rim. The oil settles, a smooth, reflective mirror. Now the wick. The flax has burned down, and a small mushroom of black carbon has formed on the tip, choking the flame. This is called the thief of the candle, for it steals the light. Elara takes the bronze pick. With steady hands, she reaches into the flame. She does not flinch. She uses the tip of the metal to gently knock the carbon clump off the wick. Flick. The black speck falls into the oil and sinks. Immediately, the flame breathes. It jumps up, doubling in size. The blue turns to a bright, cheerful yellow. The shadow in the niche retreats. She moves to the next lamp. This one has plenty of oil, but the wick has slumped into the liquid. She uses the pick to fish it out, pulling the twisted fibers up so they stand straight and proud. Squish! The oil-soaked linen adjusts. The flame steadies. There are 12 lamps in the circle. She visits each one. It is a slow circumambulation of the room. Check the oil, trim the wick, straighten the flame. It is a task of maintenance. It is the work of keeping the small things alive so the big things can function. Without these small lights, the edges of the room would be lost to the dark. She finishes the full circle. She stands back and looks. The 12 lamps are burning evenly now, 12 tiny stars mirroring the constellations she saw outside. The light in the room is balanced. The flickering is gone. She places the jug and the pick back on the shelf. She wipes a drop of oil from her thumb onto her apron. The room feels stable. The lights are vigilant. Elara returns to the center of the room. She feels the warmth of the main fire greet her like an old friend. She has tended the edges. Now she can return to the heart.
The hour is late. It is that profound, heavy time of night when the boundary between the earth and the dream world feels thinnest. Even the owls in the valley have fallen silent. The wind outside has died down completely, leaving the sanctuary suspended in a vacuum of stillness. Elara sits in her wooden chair. She has not moved for a long time. Her hands rest loosely in her lap, palms open. Her breathing has slowed to a shallow, rhythmic tide. The oak log she added earlier has broken down. It is no longer a piece of wood. It has transformed into a magnificent sculpture of glowing charcoal. It is a landscape of deep reds and blacks, pulsating with a gentle, radiating heat that warms her face and shins. There are no sudden flames now, no sparks, just the steady, unwavering glow of the heart of the fire. It is time for the final offering of the night. Not wood, not oil, but scent. Elara reaches into a small pouch hanging from her belt. She withdraws a small, round box carved from olive wood. The lid fits tightly. She twists it. Scritch. The lid comes off. Inside lie small golden tears of crystallized resin. It is frankincense brought by caravans from the distant lands of Arabia, passed from hand to hand until it reached this mountain. She picks up 3 small grains between her thumb and forefinger. They are hard and irregular, like rough amber gems. They are cold to the touch. She leans forward towards the pit. She does not throw them. She extends her hand over the hottest part of the embers. She rubs her fingers together, letting the grains fall. Tick, tick, tick. They land on the glowing coals. For a second, nothing happens. Then, the heat penetrates the resin. Sizzle. It is a whisper of sound. The golden grains melt, bubbling into liquid gold, and then instantly transmute into white smoke. A thin, pale ribbon of smoke rises from the center of the pit. It climbs straight up in the still air, a perfect vertical line connecting the fire to the roof. Then it begins to unravel. It curls and twists,
forming lazy loops and spirals that drift slowly through the room. The scent arrives a moment later. It is a complex, holy smell. It is sweet like citrus, piney like the forest, and earthy like the soil. It fills the tholos, masking the smell of the oil and the ash. It is a scent that triggers deep relaxation. Elara watches the smoke. Her eyes follow a single ribbon as it rises, twists, turns blue in the firelight, and then dissipates into the shadows of the ceiling. She watches another, and another. The movement of the smoke is slower than water, slower than wind. It is hypnotic. It occupies her eyes so her mind can rest. The silence in the room feels physical now. It presses against her ears like soft cotton. The stone walls seem to have absorbed all the noise of the last century, leaving only this pure, distilled quiet. Elara feels her eyelids growing heavy. The weight is irresistible. She is not asleep, but she is no longer fully awake. She is in the state the Greeks call incubatio, a sacred trance of rest within the temple. She is safe. The fire is watching. The smoke is carrying her prayers upward. She sinks deeper into the chair. Her head finds a comfortable spot against the wood. Her gaze softens until the glowing red coals and the white smoke blend into a single warm blur. She waits for the dawn, but she is in no hurry for it to arrive. This moment, this scented, silent, glowing moment, is perfect.
The night passes, not in hours, but in the slow, measured consumption of the fuel. The oak log has done its work. It has given its light and its heat, and now it settles into a bed of white ash and deep, glowing embers, preserving the fire for the coming day. Outside the thick walls of the tholos, the world is changing. The heavy velvet black of the sky is turning to a soft, permeable gray. The stars are retreating, fading one by one, until only the morning star remains, hanging low and bright over the Gulf of Corinth. Elara feels the change before she sees it. The air in the temple shifts. The heavy stillness of the night lifts slightly, replaced by the cool, expectant breath of the morning. She stands up from her chair. Her movements are slow and heavy. Her vigil is complete. She walks to the cedar door and opens it. Creak! A wedge of pale light falls across the stone floor, cutting through the shadows. The valley of Delphi is waking up. A thin mist clings to the olive trees below, glowing soft pink as the sun begins to touch the peaks of the Phaedriades. From the path below, she hears the soft crunch of footsteps. It is Chloe, the younger priestess, coming to take the day watch. Elara waits by the door. Chloe appears from the mist, wrapped in a fresh woolen cloak against the morning chill. She carries a basket of fresh laurel branches. There are no words spoken. There is no need for a report. The fire speaks for itself. Chloe looks past Elara to the central pit. She sees the glowing heart of the hearth, the clean floor, the trimmed lamps. She nods to Elara, a slow, respectful dipping of the chin. Elara nods back. She steps out of the doorway, allowing Chloe to pass. Step. The guard has changed. The chain remains unbroken. Elara walks away from the tholos. The morning air is sweet and damp. The birds are beginning their dawn chorus, a gentle, melodic twittering in the cypress trees. Tweet, tweet, trip. She walks down the small stone path to the priestess's quarters, a row of small, simple rooms built into the side of the hill. She pushes open the door to her room. It is dim inside, quiet and private. A small window lets in a square of gray light. In the corner is her bed, a simple wooden frame strung with ropes,
topped with a mattress filled with dried straw and lavender. She sits on the edge of the bed. The straw rustles softly under her weight. Rustle. She bends down to untie her sandals. Her fingers fumble slightly with the leather straps, but she works them loose. She pulls the sandals off, setting them on the floor. Her feet are relieved to be free of the leather, resting on the cool clay tiles. She stands one last time to unpin her hair. She lets the silver-streaked mass fall onto her shoulders. She removes the heavy outer layer of her linen robe, hanging it on a peg. She is left in her soft, thin undertunic. She lies down. The mattress holds her. The scent of the dried lavender rises up, mixing with the faint smell of wood smoke that still clings to her skin. It is the smell of peace. She pulls a heavy wool blanket up to her chin. The weight of it is comforting. She closes her eyes. Behind her eyelids, she can still see the afterimage of the fire, the glowing red coals, the dancing yellow flames. But the image is fading now, softening into a warm, dark haze. She does not need to worry about the fire. Chloe is there. The wood is there. The stone is there. Her breathing slows. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. The sounds of the morning, the birds, the wind, the distant bells seem to drift further and further away until they are just a gentle hum on the edge of her consciousness. She is safe. The city is safe. The flame burns on. And now your watch is over too. Let the fire keep itself. Let the world turn for a while. Sleep.